All right. So it is 6 p.m. on Monday, May 3rd. I'm going to call to order the Winooski Liquor Control Board. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Deputy Mayor Hal Colston.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have two regular items on the liquor control agenda. First is the first and third class liquor license and restaurant license renewal for Dos Archivos, doing business as the Archives, up for approval. Any comment from staff?
No comment from staff. As you may remember, the Archives was set to open right before COVID hit, and we're very excited that they've held on and will be hopefully joining our community.
Definitely. Any questions or concerns from council?
I just had a quick question. It doesn't look like they're requesting any outdoor space. Is the sidewalk space big enough that it would accommodate any outdoor seating? So like in the future, would we expect another request to come in, I guess?
So we have not heard from them that they're interested in doing outdoor seating, to my knowledge. John, the sidewalk's pretty wide there, so to maintain ADA, there probably would be some space for them to be able to use the sidewalk, although they have not indicated that they're interested in that.
Yeah, one thing I've heard is that there's a small city-owned park right on the corner there that may be available for some outdoor seating by that CCV ESAC area. So I think there's some discussion about potentially using that space. Heather's been discussing that with them.
Okay, that was it.
So say it's pretty busy. There's no parking spots for a buffer on that in front of there either. So I think that'd be kind of a hazard for them to put sidewalk tabling right there. But the park's a good idea, right? Or John.
Any question, comment from members of the public? You can use the chat feature in Zoom, the raise hand feature, or if you're on phone, press *9. All right. Would someone like to move to approve the first and third class liquor license and restaurant license renewal for the Archives?
So moved. Second.
Was that, I think, a motion by Jim and a second by Hal? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. And then item B is a catering request for Monkey Hospitality for Winooski Wednesdays. Any comments from staff? They have done this before for us. Any questions or concerns from council? Any questions from members of the public? All right, would someone like to move to approve the catering request for Monkey Hospitality?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. That is the end of Liquor Control Board agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. So it is 6:04 p.m. and I will call to order this regular meeting of the Winooski City Council. First up is agenda review. Any concerns about the order of our items this evening? Jesse.
So I'm not concerned about this, but I do believe we have a number of people on the call about the North End Studios lease, which is fairly far down on the agenda. We could move that up to after item D, which is the go through the event permits and then address that if the council wanted. We can keep it where it is as well.
Thank you for that suggestion, Jesse. If council is interested in that, somebody could make a motion to move item J to become item E.
I'll move to adjust the agenda to put the agenda item number J just below item number D.
Second.
And a second from Hal. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. So we will move item J up, will become the new E. Everything will shift down after that. All right. So next up is public comment. To the point Jesse made, if you are here for an item that's on the agenda, please hold until we reach that part of the agenda. But if anyone is here to speak to something not on tonight's agenda, now would be your chance to make a statement. Again, you can use the raise hand feature or the chat feature to indicate if you wish to speak. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll move to our consent agenda. So we have our meeting minutes from the evening of 4/19, the accounts payable warrants and subsequent to payout warrants for February and March, payroll warrants for April 4 to April 17, the revised e-bike operating agreement, a chicken permit for 5 Florida Avenue, and the contract for lifeguard services that we also saw at our 4/19 meeting. Are there any questions about the consent agenda items? All right, would someone like to move to approve all 5 items in the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Jim. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is council reports. So I want to lead us off by acknowledging that tonight is the last city council meeting that we will have Jessie Baker as our city manager leading us through, although she is still with us for 2 more weeks working in her role. So want to take a moment, Jessie, to highlight some of what has been achieved while you have been at the helm of our city operations for the last 4 years. So we have moved from having, just a strategic vision to implementing a master plan and various other planning documents that have put us in a position to start implementing changes in our city, working towards that strategic vision that our community came up with. We have a capital plan. We have the TIF funding plan on track, the debt coverage there. Voters have supported the last budgets that I have seen by pretty good margins. We've moved forward the pool rebuild, the Main Street project, a lot of less exciting infrastructure as well, like sewers and headworks at the water treatment plant. You were a participant in our charter commission that succeeded in bringing forward a community supported ballot item, have helped us acquire funding and staffing for the community generated vision of equity in Winooski that we are pursuing. You have helped strengthen relationships with our community and regional partners and the state, working across the county on initiatives like regional dispatch, working in advocacy with the Department of Health, with the AALB, USCRI, school district. I've provided really solid leadership this past year during the pandemic. And I think all of that is setting us up to be on a good trajectory and move forward even as you step out of the role. So I just wanted to express I am grateful for having worked with you these past couple of years and for what you have given to Winooski. And I have heard many other wonderful statements from staff, community members, partners, council. So just a little moment of congratulations. Turning to regular updates. Since our last meeting, I did attend the Planning Commission meeting, who continued to dig into form-based code, looking at items to clarify. Eric, our zoning administrator, has brought forward some items where we could use more clarification. And soon, in the next meeting or two, they will be digging into like siting, setbacks, building height. So that could be of interest to community members. The city manager search committee also met last week, finalized the job posting that is now live, and selected highest priority criteria for the selection process. We'll be meeting again next Monday to go through interview questions and be prepared for when we start seeing candidates. And then finally, last week, there was a meeting on the parking study that CCRPC and, oh my gosh, a consultant whose name I am forgetting. Anyhow, that they are helping us with. They've collected a ton of observation data and are continuing to receive community responses to the survey. Those meeting minutes are up on the CCRPC site, I would guess by now. But the data that we looked at is up there. It was very interesting. They have also validated the data they're collecting for possible pandemic impacts. So the takeaway that I had from that meeting was that most of our streets are underutilized in parking, but there are a few streets that are seeing a pinch point. So they're looking for next steps on recommendations for us to address those. I saw a chat about the closed captions, but I don't know if that's enabled on, I don't see it as an option here. Paul, if you missed that in the chat, someone's asking if we have the captions feature available. That is it for my council updates. I will pass it to Jim.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And I'll just pile on to say thank you to Jesse for everything that you've done in the short 2 years I've been here. I know that I've benefited from your leadership and insight, and I want to thank you for all the regional partnership work that you've done in representing us at a regional and state level here in Winooski, and we'll sorely miss you. I wanted to share a brief update from the Housing Commission. They met 2 weeks ago and discussed parking and density bonuses for meeting Winooski's housing goals as outlined in the master plan. The commission looked at parking and density primarily as those are the ones that can really move the needle on a project, and have made some recommendations that'll go to the planning commission to look at developing some incentives, perhaps around middle income 3 or more unit rentals as a potential missing spot in our housing mix, and something that could be worth incentivizing through parking or density. So that'll be going to the planning commission in the next couple of months, and definitely looking forward to having those two groups sit down and talk about this issue together. Other than that, I have no other updates.
Thank you, Jim. Mike?
Yeah, I have a few things. I'd like to thank Jessie for her hard work and dedication to the city of Winooski. I also like to thank her for her guidance. As you know, we had a freshman council not so long ago, and her phone and her willingness to have communications, especially for me, on a lot of questions I had in the beginning. I really appreciate her guidance and her friendship on that. So thank you, Jessie, and on behalf of many Winooski residents that I know are sad to see you leave, I'd like to thank them on their behalf. I also like to thank the Winooski residents that volunteered on Green Up Day. I don't want to steal any thunder from Bryn, so I'll keep it short. Thank you for making our city a little prettier. And I also like to thank everyone statewide who volunteered on Green Up Day to help keep our state green. One last thing is Winooski Youth Baseball is up and running, and we are still looking for players. If anyone knows, or if anyone out there is hearing this message, if you have a ball player that's interested in playing baseball, please reach out to the youth director or Winooski Youth Baseball Director, Jeff Russell, or myself. You can email me at my city email, and I'd be happy to connect you guys.
Thanks, Mike. Bryn?
Yes, good evening. And just to repeat, Jesse, I couldn't have been more disappointed to hear right around the time of town meeting that you were departing just as I was going to be joining the council. So Definitely disappointed that I won't get to work with you in this capacity, but very excited that you'll be remaining a resident in Winooski, and look forward to seeing you around town and having you participate in all of the wonderful events that the city staff are planning for the year ahead. So yeah, just repeat of everything that's been mentioned so far. You've been a critical component in steering the ship for the city in the last many years that you've been with us, and can't say enough appreciation for it. So thanks so much. As far as updates, I attend the Airport Commission meeting on April 21st. Items of note, the Director of Aviation, Gene Richards, was reappointed as the Aviation Director. They're looking at placing the sound monitoring devices, one at City Hall. They're working on easements to be able to complete that. I think that will be coming to council if it has not already for approval. Looking at placing those monitors in June or July. They reviewed noise feedback complaints. Definitely an increase in calls, likely from during the pandemic with more people spending time at home. And that looked at a number of breaking out the data to repeat callers as well as unique callers. And then just this past few days, it was announced that they have released a new phone number that will improve the data collection around that. And I will just add that to the chat box for everyone to see. So anything related to the Air National Guard operations, the phone number for that, the new phone number for that is 802-660-5379. So more to come on that. Jesse might have some updates for us on the monitor placement. Certainly, Green Up Day was fantastic. I'm so glad the weather cooperated, it warmed up, saw so many members of the community out. It was really very exciting to see our community come together and to just see, virtually all of the social media postings and collective interest and engagement across the state. I know it's had a huge impact, and hopefully we're able to get some data on participation rates and estimated collection from around the state in the coming months. And as for updates for Chittenden Solid Waste District, the board met last Wednesday and approved the budget. We will be hearing that, the council will be hearing the budget on our next council meeting. And next week, I will be interviewing alternates for the CSWD commissioner role, and we'll be bringing those forward to the next council meeting as well. I think that's all I have for now.
Thanks, Bryn. Hal?
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to appreciate Jesse by noting some of the qualities of her leadership. Many things come to mind, but what really stands out for me is how much of an ethical leader you are. You've always led us to do the right thing, no matter how tough the issue. And that built a strong sense of trust. So that's something we're going to miss because it took us a while to get here, but life goes on. So you certainly have raised the bar for this position. All the more pressure on us to find the right leader to take us to the next level. But I just deeply appreciate all your commitment and your unsung, behind the scene, trying to make things happen. So much, much appreciated. As far as reports, I too attended the recent search committee meeting to replace Jesse. You heard details from the mayor. And I just also want to just give you a brief update about our charter change bill, H227. It's been introduced to the Senate. It's now in government operations in the Senate. I spoke to Senator Rahm, and I think we're in a strong position. I'm awaiting to hear if I'm needed to testify. Haven't yet heard, which I think is a good sign. I'm optimistic it's going to get through before we close out the session, which is scheduled to close on May 22nd. So hopefully I'll be reporting to you soon some good news that we'll have our plans in place as was laid out in our charter change bill. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Hal.
Good.
We will turn to you, Jesse, for your last city update.
Thank you. I'm going to start with regular updates and end with gratitude. Otherwise, I may not make it through the regular updates. So starting with, as we have done for a year, COVID updates, our cases in Winooski are looking very good. In the Thursday to Thursday data posted on the BDH website, we have had 9 new cases in the last week with 0 last week. So the 9 were from 2 weeks ago, which is really wonderful news for our community, and really thanks to all of our neighbors for doing the right things. As you know, daily testing continues at the OCC. That is in the afternoon and evening, 2 to 8, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and 9 to 3 all other days. Those are walk-in. You can just walk up and be tested. And then, of course, vaccines are available to all now, but there are no clinic, or there are very few clinics right now that are walk-ups. So you should go on to the health department website, healthvermont.gov/myvaccine, to sign up for those. We wanted to give you a few updates on the Rotary construction work. You may have noticed the big signs that went up saying that stuff was starting May 10th, which was not what we had previously been told. So Russia followed up with them this week. So what we are hearing is that the Winooski-based work will start mid-May, likely May 17th is what we're hearing. They expect to issue a full update to the community both this Wednesday highlighting the project as a whole, and then next Wednesday on the 13th giving very specific timeline updates. So when we receive those, we will of course push them out through all of our communications channels. The Burlington work is likely to start a little earlier than the Winooski work, so you may see some work over there before here. So more to come on that. Bryn mentioned the noise monitoring device that they are requesting to install that at City Hall. It will actually go on the green belt between the parking lot and the rail tracks. We are reviewing an easement that they proposed to us and plan to bring that to you on May 17th for your consideration. It's pretty self-explanatory. Staff is on board with the concept. We're just trying to get the legal document correct. Just a reminder that our new equity director, Yasmin Gordon, will be starting on May 10th. Staff is doing a lot of work to prepare her office and make sure she has all the resources she needs on day one. Our Working Communities Grant, Challenge Grant team is meeting this week to kind of set our team up to best support Yasmin when she starts. And we're really excited to have her on board, and she'll be before you on the 17th as well for introductions. We have a project review committee meeting next week on the Butternut Station proposal that you heard about, the CHT perpetually affordable home ownership development at the OCC. We're meeting as a project review team on May 10th, and then more information will come to you on May 17th about the development agreement and purchase and sale and those details. Just a friendly reminder that Public Works has started street sweeping for the season. So check out, if you haven't heard yet, check out the website for the map of where they will be on which days. We really ask that residents not park on the street the nights that they will be coming to your neighborhood to allow us to really get that curb to curb sweeping accomplished. There will also be signage on the streets the night before, so you should have that clue as well. And then for community services updates, just pile on the thanks to, we had about 130 people who came and participated in Green Up Day on Saturday, which was awesome. As we have talked about earlier, the weather was great. And we also want to thank our partners at Chenery County Solid Waste District, CCV, and the National Guard, who each participated in that event with us. The Vermont Patriots soccer team have their first game this weekend, including their first ever home game at Landry Park. We're really excited to see that program kick off. We have 24 volunteer coaches engaged and over 150 soccer players this season, which is amazing. And so thankful to the partnership of the Vermont Patriots for growing that program, and to Ray and his team for supporting it as well. Just a reminder that the pool is about a month away from opening. So if you haven't gotten your pool passes, now might be a good time. And Ray and John are doing a lot of work to get that facility ready for operations. And then finally, Ray being Ray made me laugh out loud at this today. We'd like to welcome our 7 new additions to our Thrive family. So the kiddos have been incubating eggs for the last couple of months, and they hatched over the weekend. So they are now in program for the next week, entertaining the kiddos, and then will be rehomed to a local farm. So wanted to share that bit of good news. So I guess finally, my gratitude. I want to thank you all, the council and community, for the incredible opportunity and privilege of being your city manager for the last 4 years. We've accomplished a lot together, and the mayor and I will be celebrating some of those accomplishments on her In the World of Winooski next week. So I'm not going to go through all of that now, although I am trying to think up some good stories to tell. So if you all have funny recollections of things that have happened, feel free to send them my way. I have my own list, but I'm sure you all remember things I don't. So tonight, I simply want to say thank you. I want to thank each of the counselors and each of the mayors I have worked with. You all have always put Winooski first and really guided staff on what our priorities should be. I want to thank the community members who give so much of their time and energy and creativity to serving on boards and commissions, to strengthening conversations we have as a community, to coming to events, and just making this city the most connected city it can be. I want to thank just the best leadership team we have at the city and the staff behind each of these leaders, who you see most of them on the screen here. We have such talent and compassion and commitment on our team, and I know that Winooski is in excellent hands in the future because of their professionalism and their talent. And as Bryn alluded, I am thankful that I will be able to continue to call Winooski home for many years into the future, and look forward to seeing you all around. And if there's ever anything I can do, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse. So we'll move to our regular items, starting with item A, which is an event permit for Juneteenth in Winooski. And I believe Meredith is here, our downtown Winooski director.
Yep, so Meredith is here, and while she comes over, Heather unfortunately cannot be here tonight, so I am going to do my best to channel her on these event permits. But Juneteenth is an event that Meredith and many of her partners have come up with, so I will just turn this over to her. But just by way of introduction to all 4 of these event permits, they all 4 were heard at our staff event review committee and have been signed off on by staff. So we are in support of all 4 of them. But I will turn it over to Meredith.
Thank you, Jesse. I am not going to say a big speech about Jesse, but I love you, Jesse. We are doing a Juneteenth event for the first time officially, I guess, this year in Winooski. It was brought forward by a business owner, several business owners, and a couple of community members who said essentially the question of how come we don't have a Juneteenth event? And so downtown Winooski and the city have partnered together to launch a Juneteenth event this year. To be frank, we're starting small. We're starting with an evening event in Rotary Park, and we think it's going to be a great combination of speakers, poets, performances, and we will also have some different tents selling, different items, featuring Black owners, featuring Black makers, and then we'll also have some sort of education aspects of the event as well. And we're working with partners from Winooski and beyond to make sure this is a well-rounded event that really speaks to the tone of Juneteenth, which is celebratory and also educational. So I would be happy to hear any questions anyone has at this time.
Ms. Meredith, are there questions from council? Questions from members of the public? As a reminder, the raise hand or chat. All right, well, excited to see this new event being brought to our community. Hearing no concerns, would someone like to make a motion to approve the event permit for the Juneteenth Winooski celebration?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hal, second by Jim. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. So item B is an event permit for the PTO Fun Dog Show. This is maybe not a Meredith item.
This is not a Meredith item, but Jessica Audette is here from the PTO. She presented this idea to us at the event review committee a few weeks ago. So again, we are in support of this, and I will pass it off to Jessica.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jessica Audette, part of the PTO, and we are trying to put on a fundraiser. This is new to us. It is going to be a fun dog show. I would like to keep it small as well, as this is the first year and with COVID restrictions. Our hope is to just raise money for the staff, the kiddos, and the teachers of the Winooski School District. There will be 10 categories with 15 participants per category. Potentially 3 other categories that are just wrap up the whole show. The event permit is for Landry Park. And yeah, it will be on June 26th from 9 to 1.
Thanks, Jessica. So people are going to submit their dogs for consideration in these categories?
Yes.
Nice. I've seen there are a lot of dogs in Winooski.
Yeah, there's a few costume categories just to make it fun.
Excellent. Any questions from council on this event? Bryn?
Just a quick one. I'm looking at the attachment and it says the event hours are from 10 to 2. So is that 9 to 1 for setup or including setup time? And
yeah, that's a really great question. Thanks for asking it. I actually had to move my event date due to another fundraiser that was pretty meaningful to us as well. So we moved it from May 22nd to June 26th. And given the time in the month, I moved the date earlier in the day just due to weather. I wasn't sure how warm it was going to be. I figured early in the day would be better for the animals.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Jessica, thank you for moving that date. I know the other fundraiser, and it's going to touch a lot of people. So, especially one individual. But I appreciate your willingness to do that.
Of course.
Any other questions from council? Questions from members of the public? All right. Would someone like to move to approve the PTO Fun Dog Show event permit?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Next up is Winooski Wednesdays. Meredith?
Hello again. So this year we are glad to be bringing back the monthly summer concert series, Winooski Wednesdays. We are starting June 2nd, hopefully with council's approval, July 7th, August 4th, and September 1st. We are bringing various acts from around Vermont. We're really excited about the lineup this year, in particular because following 2020 where we were unable to hold gatherings, we're particularly excited about being able to safely gather and celebrate in Winooski this summer. So we are also adding on another layer this year, which is an artist market, which will be also following distancing and COVID restrictions, which I think will fit perfectly into the Rotary space. So we'll have vendors with 10 by 10 tents spread throughout the park, in addition to having a musical performance. Also this year, we're adding an opener, and we're really excited because we're partnering with hyper-local Winooski acts, some of which who have never really had this kind of audience and stage before. The first June, again, if approved by council, we will be moving forward with partnering with the Winooski School District and having their jazz band and their band be the opener for our first performer. And then we'll continue with other hyper-local dance, rap, and musical performers to be openers for the regular bands throughout the summer, which I think is a really great way to be a little bit more welcoming and inclusive to the entire Winooski community this summer. So we're really excited. The hours will be 5 p.m. doors, and we're closing up around 8:30, depending on the performer. And we are partnering this summer with Mascoma Bank to sponsor this series. And they are very excited about this event, to the point where they have volunteered to cover all of our volunteer positions for crossing guards and other needs, entrance and exit, tracking for COVID, any COVID needs this year with their employees. So we're very grateful to them also to be partnering with us on Winooski Wednesday.
That is exciting, Meredith. Some new stuff going on there. Any questions from council? Any questions from the public? All right, hearing no concerns, do I hear a motion to approve the Winooski Wednesdays event permit?
I move.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. And our last event permit is for the farmers market. Anything new or details you want to share on that one, Meredith?
Nope. We're really glad to be back again with the Winooski Farmers Market. We'll be hosting the market in the on the Winooski Falls Way hardscape in front of Champlain Mill, as we have in years past. We will not be doing any street closures, and we're hoping to have about 20 vendors every week. We're going to be starting June 6th and going throughout the summer. Depending on the weather, we may go into October, but due to feedback from seasonal vendors in the past, October dates tend to be hit or miss when it comes to weather, and we would like to make sure that they feel comfortable setting up. And so we're not confirming any October dates at this time. And the hours are the same as they always have been, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we will be having a market manager on site every week.
Thanks, Meredith. Any questions from council?
I have a question. A few years ago, didn't the farmers market?
Thanks for that question. When I started, there was no spread to Rotary Park. There was an artist market that existed at the same time that overlapped at the same time, and that seemed to do okay. That seemed to do quite well. The feedback that we are going off of is from the vendors. So the vendors really love the ease of setting up in that location. And we've also, we love Rotary Park, downtown Winooski thinks it's like such an excellent space to hold events. But we're really going by what the seasonal vendors have to say about the location. So potentially that could change in future years, but this year we're sticking with what the vendors wanted and keeping it on that Winooski Falls Way hardscape. And to be quite honest, we can extend quite a bit. So we can actually fit quite a few vendors in that space. But in the past, we haven't really had more than 20-ish vendors per week. So we haven't felt the need, we haven't felt constrained by that Winooski Falls Way location yet. But that could certainly change in the future.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public? All right, do I have a motion to approve the Winooski Farmers Market event permit?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Hal. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you very much, Meredith.
It's exciting. We're getting back to normal. It feels like.
We're working towards it. Moving on to our new item E. This is on for discussion approval of the Vermont Performing Arts League lease at the O'Brien Community Center. I think, Jesse, if you could give like an introduction overview, we could take public comment, and then if we feel the need to, we have the executive session on here if we want to hear from our attorney as well.
Yes, sure. So as you remember, on February 4th, we issued the notice of lease default to the Vermont Performing Arts League. We've had a number of executive sessions on this issue since, and in response to communication I have had with the organization, last week we received a public statement from the organization, a sexual harassment policy, a student and community members discrimination policy, and a transition plan. So those are on your agenda this evening. David Cooper, who I believe is a board member of VPAL, has also joined us this evening. And there may be another board member joining us, but I don't see his name in the list right now. If I'm wrong on that, and there is another VPAL board member on the call, please just raise your hand in the Zoom function. And then additionally, our city attorney is here if you would like to speak with him in executive session following your discussion this evening.
Thanks, Jesse. And it looks like we do have an additional board member who's come over, Victoria Moore. David or Victoria, would you like to speak to the community here, share what steps what you've been doing or doing to address this situation?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Oh, okay, great. Well, things have been happening and changing fast. I just joined the board, as we all did, as there was a changeover of the board. And so our very first board meeting is this Thursday. So some of us have not even met each other yet. Joseph Pensack, who is on the board, is on the line right now and can speak if he is unmuted, but he is on phone because he's driving right now. And I believe if I give you his phone number, you can possibly unmute him so he can at least speak via audio.
I can see it. There's only one dial-in caller. So Paul, if you can move the phone over, please.
It's a 355 exchange.
Yeah,
that's Joseph. Well, I can introduce myself, and so as you said, my name is David Cooper. I moved to Vermont in 2007. I attended Berklee College of Music and graduated from there with a degree in music. Since I've been here, I've been working with many members of the New American community, both in Winooski and in Burlington, making music, recording music, producing, working with young artists to develop their talents, and have been at the various studios for that purpose as far as performances go and things like that. And I will say that I am the producer and manager of A2VT, which is Africa to Vermont musical performing group comprised of New Americans. And I'm happy to say that I am a producer and co-author of the song Winooski, My Town. So what I'd like to do is read the mission statement of VPAL. And this is, it's important. And this is the reason why I am on the board. And I believe the other new members of the board are on the board. And most of us are involved in the arts in some way, if not all of us. And that is to support and sustain a spirit of community within Vermont's increasingly diverse population by fostering educational, cultural, social, and recreational opportunities that encourage interaction between people of different backgrounds, and to assist in the preservation and continuation of ethnic traditions of people from around the world who have settled in Vermont. I don't have a lot else to say right now. We are gonna, I see Victoria, it's the first time I'm seeing her. Hi, Victoria, first time I'm seeing her. We are gonna have a meeting on Thursday. I know that one thing that we, some of us have spoken about is, right now I believe we have 6 members, and we are hoping to increase that to between 7 and 9, including more people who actually live in Winooski and members of the New American community.
So, David, thank you. I understand that the board is transitioning. There is a transition plan as part of your response.
Yes.
But the direct ask that we have made of the Vermont Performing Arts League is, how are you going to address the harms and abuse that have occurred with the previous executive director, or rather with Ben Bergstein? I understand that he has been removed from the board and from programming, but how else do you plan to address what has happened and prevent future harm to our community?
I believe that the outgoing board has drafted a sexual harassment statement and adopted some, I don't know if anyone else can speak to this, but I know that and I believe that perhaps that has been sent to the city council.
We did receive those policies.
Okay.
And an overview of a transition plan. One of the concerns that community members have raised is that April Bergstein is still a part of the organization, and there's concern given her relationship with Ben, with her spouse.
Right. It is my understanding that she is also—
I'm sorry, April Warner, not April Bergstein, sorry.
Right. It is my understanding that she is also leaving, and that is with an ASAP to it, as soon as an executive director is brought on board to take over. And that hopefully is going to happen very soon. And I don't know exactly. And that's one of the things that I believe we'll be finding out more about on Thursday. But I think that that is in progress, her exit from VPAL.
Would either Joseph on phone or Victoria, you're also new, are there any other details you care to share about discussions or planning around this matter?
This is Victoria. So just like David, I'm brand new to the organization. So I don't really have any details yet. Just like he stated, we are first meeting on Thursday. Just like David said, what I can say is that, I'm here to support the organization to move forward and to make sure that we have the mission statement is what directs the organization. I am with a background of arts. I'm a professional dancer. I've had a studio in Salsa in the Dance Studio in Burlington for over 17 years now. I also organized an annual event in Burlington that is International Salsa Music and Dance Festival. We did that for 5 years, and then, of course, COVID came. I'm very embedded in the arts and cultural arts. I'm an immigrant. I also have a daytime professional job, but that's not related to this organization that I'm really trying to support. It's more the folk art and art that I'm here to, to make so that it can move forward. And I'm sure that the new members are going to work hard to make that happen. But unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information. Just like David, we are brand new and just trying to get on board and doing the work.
Thanks, Victoria. Is it Joseph Pensack? Are you with us on the phone?
Star 6 to unmute Joseph.
You can press star 6 on your phone to come off of mute.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes, welcome.
Okay. Sorry, I thought we were going to be on a good bit later, so I'm driving out to Stowe right now. But yeah, I was the head curator and director of New City Gallery for a decade. It was a gallery in Burlington. And then was the executive director of River Arts up until it shut down for COVID. River Arts is a 20-year-old arts organization in Morrisville. And so, yeah, like David and Victoria said, I mean, I've witnessed and personally, connected with and helped host events with the New American community at New City Gallery for years, and saw what VPAL did for so many years for that community. And, I've been over to the O'Brien Center and seen it there. And so mostly when I heard about this, I just thought, I just want to see that work continue. I realize that it's a complicated, hard question. The city council will have to decide whether they want to, how you want to move forward. But, I love the mission and of VPAL, and I'm glad David read that mission statement, because that's what gets me excited about VPAL moving forward with a new board. And I mean, if I'm going to be on the board, part of what I said up front in saying yes to being on the board was just like, we have to have a really clear vision of how this organization is going to be healthy and very well, lots of transparency and a lot of really clear policies, just to assure the community that VPAL really gets it and, wants to create a really safe and thriving environment.
So, Joseph, are you also a new member?
Yeah, I was just asked to join, yes.
Are there is the entire board new at this point?
Yeah, I think that the idea was I'm not sure. I can't speak for board members who stepped down as to why, but I think the prevailing idea that I'm hearing is just that there needs to be a fresh restart.
Okay. So I guess in summary, what I'm hearing is that there was a statement shared with us. I don't know that the organization has really done a public statement acknowledging the harm caused by this organization. And I am hearing, there's these new policies put in place and a fresh start with this board, and ideally a quick transition of the executive director. I would ask, how it sounds like all of you have been involved in the organization to some extent before, right? Like not as board members, but you have had some involvement beforehand. And so I'm curious how you would speak to that. Have you witnessed any of the types of behavior that have been alleged? How do you feel that coming into this, that the organization is getting a fresh start when you have all been a part of it in some scope in the past?
Yeah, I mean, since I just was talking about this, I can say personally, I've never witnessed anything like this, and was completely shocked. I've never actually worked with directly what VPAL does, but I've kind of had like parallel connections because I work in Burlington in the arts.
Would others like to comment?
Yeah, my working with VPAL was with A2VT mostly, and rehearsals, performances. We were invited to perform at the Vermont Democratic party, election night, events, things like that, and rehearsals. I volunteered at the International Festival a couple of times. So over the period of years that I was at the various locations for rehearsals or performances, I did not witness any of these things. So I too was quite shocked. And one of my motivating factors is the work, which is why I read the mission statement. The work that the organization does is really valid and really important. And I just don't want to see it stop. And I don't want to see perhaps a whole community get disenfranchised because of a very unfortunate situation. So I'm really looking forward. I know there's a lot of things to look back that are regrettable and just not good. And my motivation is to help it move forward according to this mission.
This is Victoria. I've known of the organization from the day I arrived in the country. They were doing international festivals, and of course, my family, my husband and my children attended. I did not know who the owner was at the time, of course. Couldn't even speak English really. And ever since, every year I attended the international festival, I knew of, the organization primarily. And then I more met Ben during my search of studio space. I lost my studio space that I had for 17 years. I didn't lose it. I couldn't afford it no longer. And the rent went up. And I was looking for a space. And that's when I met him personally. And I learned that he's actually behind the international festivals that I've been attending. And I have never witnessed anything. It was a total shock for me. I've known both of them because now I rent space from there. Salsarina Dance Studio is in Winooski, and I rent from them. Never witnessed anything. I was super shocked. And someone like myself who spent 2 years in a refugee camp as a single 22-year-old, I would pick up very quickly on anything that is inappropriate because I lived it. That's all I can say is that I have never witnessed anything, and I was super shocked when I heard.
Jesse, go ahead.
Christine, can I just make two kind of housekeeping things? One, Michael Meehan has his hand raised, and I believe he is also a new member to the board. Paul,
yes.
Bring him over. And I know there are a lot of people commenting in the chat, and I think the mayor's intention is to hear public comment after this council discussion. So I would encourage folks, if you're interested in giving comment, to raise your hand or indicate in the chat that you'd like to give public comment, but give that verbally, not just in the chat for the public record of it. Thanks, Christine.
Yeah, we will open up for public comment shortly. Michael, did you want to speak as a board member? You're on mute still.
Unmute. There we go. You guys can hear me all right?
Yes, I can now.
All right. So I am familiar with VPEL and that I've helped with the International Festival in the past, helping set up and organize it. I'm familiar with VPEL because my partner, who is originally from India, came to VPEL to do fundraising programs and so forth. And I just wanted to say this because we're all very shocked about everything that's happened. But I personally have never witnessed anything. But Arunima, who is not here today, she's not part of the board, just was like, I've worked side by side with Ben and I've never once ever experienced anything. So it was really shocking to us. And we just really love, there are so many people that need a bridge. They straddle two worlds. They come from tremendous hardship. And to have the ability to celebrate their own communities and lives and things. This organization is very special to us. And I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Michael. I would open it up for any questions that council has, but we do have a lot of public comment, so keep that in mind.
I have a quick question. So I want to reiterate actually what the question the mayor had. So is the board 100% new?
I believe so.
Okay, so
I don't know everyone on the board, but I do believe that they're all new.
okay. And so given that, I would imagine that there isn't a current board chair.
I do not know the answer to that. It's not me. I know that.
So I'm just trying to understand the current structure while there is this 100% turnover and how it aligns with the policies that were developed and given to the council within the last 2 months. And the directives for following any procedures that are outlined in the sexual harassment policy as to filing a complaint and how that would proceed in a manner that is safe and feels secure to staff and to the community.
I think I don't really have an answer, but I think this is one of the things that we'll be discussing on Thursday at our first meeting of this iteration of the board.
Okay. It sounds like there really isn't even an interim method or process in place by which any staff or any community members that have complaints to file those outside of going to the current executive director. Am I clear in understanding that?
I do not know.
Okay.
I don't know if Joseph has an idea on that.
No, I mean, working for nonprofits for 20 years and working with boards, until you have a new president, vice president, treasurer, all those positions, you can't make decisions apart from an acting executive director, of which April's, as I understand it, April is still acting in that role until she's able to transition it.
Okay, and it sounds like, from the complaints that we have heard from the community that the affiliation of the executive director to Ben, that there are many former and current staff that would not feel comfortable coming forward and providing those complaints per the sexual harassment policy. So just being mindful of how that plays into the council's request to meet our expectations.
Thanks, Bryn. Do other councilors have questions? Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. The transition plan that was handed to us includes hiring a new executive director within 90 days or less. And I believe this was dated as a couple of days ago. It also included stabilizing the board of directors, but I would say having an entirely new board that has not yet convened is not so stable. Can you commit here that you will meet that timeline of hiring a new executive director within 90 days?
If not sooner.
And then the public statement issued on April 23rd details an apology to the communities of Winooski and Burlington. Is this something that this board of directors is going to stand by in the same way that the previous board did?
I would say so. I think, sorry, Joseph, I interrupted.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say absolutely. And in fact, this is just, I can only speak from my perspective, but I think it needs to go beyond that into a whole lot of thoughtful policies about rental spaces and creating safe spaces and making sure there's a process for people to share complaints and all this stuff, and have there be there just needs to be a new culture established for it to be healthy.
This is Victoria as well. So I'm the one of the female on the board who's here, and I take these things very seriously. As I noted, I experienced things like this in my life in the past that are very, very uncomfortable, and it's very hard to complain in a refugee camp. There's really no place to go to complain. So it's going to be very much so, my agenda, and I actually asked today as well that we look at that and we make it even more stronger and more, available to people who feel that they're not able to speak, and how are we going to make that happen. So that's on my personal agenda as well, being on the board, is to strengthen what you folks already seen, as I think it needs more.
Thanks, Victoria. Hal, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, will there be any consideration to hire an interim executive director in order to allow April Werner to move off and move on as soon as possible? And I understand this is probably an issue you need to bring up at your first board meeting, but just curious.
I spoke with April briefly, and I think that's very much what she wants. And I think no doubt it will be what the new board wants as well.
Thanks, Mike. I see your hand.
Thanks, Mayor. It kind of sounds to me that, I don't know how to put this in structure. It sounds like this is premature. It sounds like they need to have their meeting to get some things straight with their own board, and then maybe come back to us with their plan. Because they haven't even convened. They don't even know who's on the board or they haven't even met. So I'm thinking that this is kind of, they need to get some stuff, some facts to us. And I think we should, if we can table this to another meeting, a future meeting. And I'm not sure how that process will work out. I don't know if that's a Jesse question or you, Mayor. But it sounds to me that they need to have a meeting first and then discuss these topics and then come back to us with a plan. And I like Hal's idea about the interim director. I think that should be maybe one of the first order of businesses, but like I said, I think this should be tabled until they can convene.
Thanks, Mike. That is something that you could make a motion for, but we should take public comment before anyone makes any sort of motions.
Absolutely. I'm just wanting to get that out before.
Yep. Thanks. Bryn, you have one more question?
Yeah, I did want to touch on the question about the transition plan and how it indicates 90 days, a 90-day goal. The document that was shared with us does not have a date on it. So I know that I can't easily reference when this was actually drafted versus sent. But when, from the date of this being sent to the council, 90 days or less being the goal. But then on the second page, it says with a short overlap to provide for transition. So, what would be the estimated timeline to be sufficient for that? That seems extremely vague.
I think I would have to look at are you referring to like the date of the document versus the date it was released? The discrepancy between the date it was created versus the date it was sent?
Maybe Jesse knows the date the council received it.
We received, don't quote me on, I can keep going and I'll find that date for you.
Okay. The point being that in the document, granted, like if it's been received within the last week, that it articulates a 90-day or less timeline for hiring a new executive director, but in specific time for a transition period. So, curious what would be sufficient for transition. So at least 3 months to hire, and then how much longer for a transition?
I see.
So we received the document on all the documents on April 29th, but I think the question more is what is the board's plan for that rather than the specific date?
Right. And so I guess that would be another thing for us to determine on our first meeting. By the transition period, you're referring to the transition between the 3-month hiring, let's say, up to 3-month hiring versus the time for the training, let's say, that period between the time when the new ED comes on board and April departs.
Correct. So imagining that it does take a full 3 months, a full 90 days to hire a new executive director, what would be an estimated timeline for transitioning and training the new hire?
Okay.
I would say this also falls in I think all of us are probably feeling the same hesitancy to speak because a board typically, nobody can just speak unilaterally for the board unless they're on the executive committee and are authorized to do that. So I think what you're getting is our perspectives of, gosh, we really love the mission of this organization. We're all really disappointed and sad to hear about what happened. And man, we want to see this mission continue, but we can't really say definitively because we're still all in a little bit of a state of shock and just wanting to be helpful. But just when it comes down to technically, I don't think any one of us can speak unilaterally about these questions. And so I did like the idea of waiting for the board to even meet for the first time.
Thanks. Point well taken. I do want to ask one more question to each of you is who recruited you to join this board?
I don't know if I was recruited, but I was told that there was going to be some openings on the board by Jason Horn, who is someone I already know who does live sound. He does sound for my bands. He does sound for A2VT sometimes, and another band I'm affiliated with, and he works with VPAL and different things and in a technical capacity. And he said that there was going to be some turnover at the board. And
Thanks,
he didn't actually ask me. He just kind of presented it. And then I said, oh, is that something that you think I might be, qualified to do? I think it sounds interesting. I've never done
David.
This type of thing. So
thank you.
Sure.
Joseph, what about you?
Yeah, so I think the chain was David called me and asked me if I would consider it.
Okay, Victoria?
I think for all of us, it sounds like we kind of recruited ourselves indirectly, but at least I can speak for myself. I was actually just calling to pay my bill for the next month rent, talking to Stephanie, who's no longer there. She broke the news to me and I was devastated. And I said, wow, what's going to happen to the arts and the things that, I participated in when I first arrived to this country. And I was very saddened that, something, an action like this would take all that away from the community. And I did tell her that, Stephanie, with anything that I can help, I would love to help. I'm not in support of these actions. I'm in support of the arts. And we can't, I just don't see that this goes away. And so I think that's how I kind of got myself recruited. She shared the information, and then I was contacted in about 2 days
Thank
later.
you. And then Michael, who recruited you?
I was recruited by April, but really it was, she asked me just recently, she expressed that there was going to be an interim board set up and that she was leaving, and they needed a board member or two. I don't know what the situation was, but she asked me if I'd be willing to be on the transition board to help move the organization forward after everything that happened. And I said that I'd be happy to, but I don't expect my role to be permanent. I expect it to be really just there to help, being a part of the international festival and having Runima share with me her experiences. Just to kind of follow on those words, like, the organization it does so much, and I feel very connected to it. So I would love to see it survive and go on. And right now everything is very tumultuous. So if I can be a positive force, I would be. But I don't plan on being on the board for very long, honestly. Just my own commitments, I wouldn't be able to. But I understand the logistics. I've helped set up the international festival for over 3 years. So I'm somewhat aware of the logistics and the hard work that goes into.
Thanks. Thank you, Michael. Let's move to public comment then. Paul, if you want to start pulling folks over, I think Sarah was up first.
You got it. Sarah, whenever you're ready.
Hello, friends. Thank you. My name is Sarah Mell, and I am a member of the arts community. I am also a resident of Winooski. I am also a person who has been harmed by Ben Bergstein. And I have just a couple of questions. And the first and most relevant for me is that, as an artist, I too do not want to lose spaces where arts are held up in our communities. And I already did. There are a large number of people who already lost those spaces because of the actions of Ben and April. And so what I haven't yet heard from new board members is that they believe those who've been harmed. And I'm curious whether or not new board members are willing to tell us whether or not they believe the reports, because in order for this organization to thrive in the ways that I think it could, as an artist, as a person wanting to participate in these spaces, I need to know that I'm not going into a space of Ben and April's friends who have taken over their organization and don't believe my experience.
I'll take that first. So I'm not Ben's friend, and I totally not denying the allegations or your experience. I respect, and I am really sorry for your experience. I'm acknowledging, and I'm not denying any of the experiences that I hear. Again, I want to make sure that it's clearly understood. I'm not a friend of Ben. I was renting space from them. I'm not a support of any of his actions. All I'm supportive is for you and I to have a space to continue with the arts, and absolutely believe, anybody who had these experiences, my heart goes out. And I will do the best I can to make sure that it's not going to happen during my time helping the organization. I'm going to try my best that I have.
Thanks for feeling that, but I think that we should take comments first and then give you all a chance to respond. Sarah, did you have additional questions?
I just had one kind of logistic question as well. I really appreciate the time. Thank you, Mayor Lott. And the other kind of logistical question was, because I don't understand the organization of VPEL, like how it is set up, I am curious as to whether or not Ben and April will continue in any way to financially benefit from the events planned and put on by VPAL.
Thanks, Sarah. We will come back to that. Paul, who's next? Alex?
Alex is next. Alex, go ahead when you're ready.
I just want to, my name is Alex. I live and work in Winooski. I'm part of Winooski Mutual Aid. And I just want to echo Sarah that in all of these new board members' statements, what I heard was we support the arts. We want to keep this organization going. We love the mission. What I didn't hear was we believe the survivors. What I didn't hear was we are ashamed that this organization was complicit in this harm, and we're going to do something to reckon with it. Winooski is a place where I know that restorative justice is valued. I know that in the criminal legal system, there's a restorative program in Winooski. I know that in the schools, restorative practices is important. And one of the key pieces of restorative justice is who was harmed and what can happen to make it as right as possible. I heard nothing from these new board members about any way that they could possibly begin to make this right. And I don't trust people who would center their own dedication to the arts and their own resumes over clearly and publicly stating we are ashamed, we believe these survivors, and our absolute number one priority is not arts access, it is making it right to this community. So I would strongly urge the council to not trust that this board is operating in good faith with the needs of our community in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. I think Kim is next.
Thank you. Yes, I am also a Winooski resident and a member of the arts community, a restorative justice practitioner, and an anti-violence advocate. And I can tell you that these behaviors that Ben Bergstein perpetrated and that April Werner was complicit in have been happening for well over a decade and a half. And many of our community leaders knew, many artists in our community knew, many kind of gatekeepers knew, or they didn't acknowledge that they knew. They saw, they had a feeling, but there wasn't necessarily anyone doing anything about it. So a whole lot of people were complicit. And now that there is an opportunity for North End Studios to kind of reckon with what it has covered up at the same time as doing good work in the arts community, I echo Alex's comment that this is really a time for reckoning. How much good work in the community does an art space have to do before actually the harm that it causes in the community is outweighed, right? How much harm does someone have to cause before it's too much harm? And the good things that are done in the community are actually worth it. So North End Studios and Ben and April and Vermont Performing Arts League does not own the arts in our area. The arts are happening anyway. What we need are affordable art spaces. What we need are community-owned areas for these multicultural offerings and for nourishing and providing leadership and presentation opportunities for folks to show off the work that they do with low cost and with low barrier. That's our call to action. The call to action is not necessarily perpetuating the same system where harm happened with just a new cast of characters. Our opportunity here in the community of Winooski is for us to claim and own and nourish the people who call this place home and have these multicultural offerings to share with the world. That's our call to action. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Paul, were there other folks lined up?
No, but folks can use the raise hand function or indicate in the chat if they'd like to add public comment.
I see Laura's hand raised.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Okay, great. So much fun with technology. I just want to say, as someone who has talked to recently former staff members, we are talking about an organization that as of yesterday, had 5 staff members. Today has 2. Several of them quit literally in the last few days. The entire board resigned by Friday. The staff resigned today. I don't think that you can sit there and say that everything is fine and that bringing in new board members makes this fine. I have been working in the nonprofit arena in Burlington for 21 years. I have never seen an organization where the entire board and all but one staff member resigned in the course of a week. I've literally never seen that. And I have been involved with organizations that have had embezzlement before, right? Like I've seen some really bad things go down, and this is shocking to me. I've never seen anything like this. And the idea that this is something that can just be fixed with new board members is not true. I mean, there are going to be, I want you as city councilors to understand that there are going to be investigations that come down on so many different levels. And I hope the new board members understand that too. That VT Digger article was just the top of the iceberg of what's going to be happening. I had a long conversation with a former staff member this morning, and the financial fraud that was detailed was extraordinary to me. I mean, I have talked to 19 women in this community who were sexually harassed, assaulted, and raped by Ben. Half of them told me that April was there while it happened. The entire friggin' staff quit. I can't express to you how incredibly unusual and severe that is. I can't even I've just never seen anything like this before. And the only lease left standing is yours at the O'Brien Community Center. Champlain Housing Trust canceled their lease and has a no trespass order for April and Ben. Hinsdale is canceling their lease because of stuff they dug up that had nothing to do with sexual assault allegations, but is literally other crimes they committed in the North Winooski space. So they have been barred from 2 out of 3 spaces, and yours is literally the final space. And I heard from a former staff person that Ben was on site and that April drove him there after he was barred from their site. And I know that you created the lease termination notice based on assault allegations that happened without video evidence. And a friggin' city staff person told that there's no way that they could verify that Ben had been on site because that city, the video from the O'Brien Community Center is terminated after 3 to 5 days. So we have former North End Studio staff verifying that Ben was on site after he was no longer allowed to, and that April drove him there. The amount of fraud and sexual assault, and I can't even I'm sorry, I'm just so disturbed by what is left of this organization, that the idea of bringing in a handful of new board members could make this right is just absolutely assault. I got beat. But for real, folks, this is not okay.
Thank you, Laura. Are there other folks who wish to speak? Members of the public, you can use the chat or the raise hand feature. So I'd like to give board members a chance to respond to some of the statements that members of our community have made and questions that were raised.
Yeah, I would love to speak first. I absolutely believe these accusers. I was horrified and could not believe the allegations, all the stuff that was just said. It's the first time I'm hearing those things. I think we're all in a situation where we, you can hear about a situation like this and you see the good work that the organization has done, but I absolutely agree with everything the people who just signed on said. That there has to be a reckoning, and that should be first. I am hearing what you're saying has touched me, and I am really moved.
Thanks, Joseph. Would others like to respond?
I really don't have anything to say because it's very disturbing what I've heard, and I can't say that, oh, all those people are not telling the truth. I don't believe that. I believe that they're sharing their experiences and that those things are real, you know. And those are some pretty horrific allegations. So I don't know what else to say except, yeah, there's some restoration of trust that needs to happen, and it won't happen, obviously, if Ben and April are still involved in the organization, and even once they're gone, there has to be work done to restore that trust. And they will be gone. Well, Ben's gone, April will be gone, and hopefully it's enough to have her gone and to have the organization in new hands to move forward.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
I see, Michael, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. Just to reply, almost every single woman I've ever known in my life has faced discrimination, harassment, or assault in some form or another, and it is utterly disturbing to me. And I honestly, we were talking today, the organization, I was purely thinking about the organization's existence today and answering a question early on, because my partner she was floored when she heard these allegations. She had no idea, and that's all I was sharing. But I have no doubt that people have experienced this, and I don't mean to in any way take that away. And I apologize if I did, because that was not my intent. Literally almost every woman close to me has experienced just horrible things that just happen like as if it's normal. So I don't mean to take that away. But why I said I would be a part of this board is because while all of these things are there, the organization has done things that are incredibly helpful to so many people. And I would love to see it not die right now, because I think this is such a hard time. People are paralyzed. They don't know what to do. And I want to be a positive force in that, because getting a foothold in America and feeling like you can treasure your life and also move forward in this place is not an easy thing for anybody. And I would like to see this organization, and I can't speak to anything other than, a lot of art spaces kind of came about because of this organization that may not have been used as art spaces. And I would hope we could keep that going in some form. However, and at the end of the day, I do believe artists will prevail, whether or not this organization exists. But I do think this kind of rocked everybody. And the things I've heard today, I did not realize that these are tremendously shocking. So obviously, I'm just hearing about it. But I would say, processing that, the space and the opportunities available for people to get a foothold in business, to start an enterprise with arts, to do things, this organization has been important. But I don't mean to discount any of that. I'll stop talking. Just wanted to say that.
Michael. Victoria, did you want to add anything? I know you already spoke a bit earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for me to, take ownership and apologize on the behalf of the organization and Ben for their actions. But I would love to do that, because now I'm here and representing the organization in a very short time. And again, all I can say is I'm really sorry, and I hear you, and And I understand. And I hope that if anybody has a chance to talk to me, they can realize why I'm credible. Single women in refugee camp experience a lot and learn a lot. And so I just hope, like David said, that we can move forward positively and create some kind of trust again for the organization because of the things that we would like to keep in Winooski. For people like me who come to this country with no language and culture shock, it is a very, very important thing to have. Thank you.
Thanks. And then one outstanding question, is anyone able to answer the question of whether Ben and April will continue to benefit financially from the Vermont Performing Arts League?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't see how. So that's all I know. I certainly don't think so. I don't think so.
So I want to thank everyone who has spoken for sharing about personal experiences. Yeah.
There's one more person in the chat who would like to speak. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, certainly.
Hi. I would like to ask all the new board members, specifically why, and for the city councilors too, why does it have to be VPAL? Why can't other organizations grow or start from this? There's no reason why it has to be VPAL. April is still there. April will continue to be there. And the fact that you all don't know if they're going to continue to profit. There was at the O'Brien Center alone, there's been child labor problems. There has been numerous. And for people to say, and for new board members to begin, and it makes no sense to me why VPAL has to continue when other people have the resources to do the programming. And Winooski can stand up and do some of the programming. The programming is good. We're not taking away from that. We're taking that this is, I'm sorry, I'm not clear. I didn't prepare a statement, but there's no reason why VPAL has to continue. There's no reason why Winooski can't step up and do the programming with assistance. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thanks, Melissa. I'll leave a little space if any board member would like to comment on that before we transition.
I don't really have an exact comment. You asked about if April and Ben will benefit still from future of VPAL continuing, and my answer is I don't think so. I don't see how that they would. And once April is gone, she's gone. Ben's already gone. So my answer would be no, but
thanks.
Yeah.
If I could just jump in.
Sure.
Yeah, I kind of want to just back up what he was saying. I would love it if we could meet and answer these questions definitively, just in that piece. And, at the end of the day, it is a tenuous situation, and we're going to just try to do what we can here. But I agree. I think, the last commenter's point, I believe arts will always survive, and there's plenty of space for that. I know there's a lot of people that are connected into this kind of network, but at the same time, I just want to say that on both sides. But I would love to just meet and find out really the logistics ahead and move forward before we just don't know. But I would feel like the easiest answer in the world is they would not profit from a organization that they're not a part of. But I don't know how to answer that question other than right now I would know what the structure is exactly.
Thank you. If council would like to receive counsel from our city attorney, now would be a good time to move to find that an executive session would be warranted if that's desired.
So moved.
So pursuant to VSA 3132, the negotiation of real estate purchase or lease options would put us at a disadvantage. So is there a motion to enter into executive session inviting City Manager Jesse Baker and Attorney Bob DePalma?
And Phoebe, please.
Oh, yes, and our HR Manager, Phoebe Townsend.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bryn, second by Jim. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. So for folks on the line, we are going to move off of this Zoom line to consult with our attorney, and then we will return to this line back into open session. So we won't be discussing anything else in that other line and should be back in a little bit. So thank you for your patience. So I do want to acknowledge that the Vermont Performing Arts League North End Studios has been providing a service in our community. And there are folks who members of our New American community or folks who cannot afford commercial spaces who have been able to really do their work through this arrangement, through this organization. However, we also need to acknowledge how many community members have told us that this organization has caused harm to them. We asked the Performing Arts League to ensure us that that harm would be addressed and prevented in the future. Based on what we've heard here tonight, that the harassment and discrimination policies direct concerns to the executive director, who is currently April Warner, that the entire board and much of the staff has turned over. We do not believe there is sufficient structure in place to provide confidence that that harm will be addressed and prevented, nor that the Vermont Performing Arts League as a tenant can comply with the terms of the lease at this time. So I would entertain a motion from council to direct our city manager to issue a formal notice of termination for the lease of Vermont Performing Arts League effective May 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hal, second by Jim. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. I further want to just state that we understand that this is going to provide a service gap in the community, and the city is willing to partner with community members who step up and want to fill in these spaces. And to those of you who have stepped onto the Vermont Performing Arts League board, do want to recognize that it's a challenging position that you have been put in this evening. However, as an organization, we asked for information by a certain date. And so it's unfortunate that the way things have worked out for you, you haven't been able to convene and provide that information. And thank you again to residents who have shared their experiences in this situation. So we will move on to item F now. And this is a police department staffing plan with Chief Hebert.
Great, thank you. I'm going to set the table for this just a little bit and then pass it off to Chief Hebert. So we wanted to bring this to you tonight for your consideration. We do not need a vote, but because we are doing something a little unusual, we wanted to bring it forward to you for your feedback. We currently have one vacancy in the police department and several others anticipated this calendar year. We also have the opportunity through our interview process over the last 6 months or so to hire 3 really amazing, among the best PD candidates I think I've ever seen, and I've probably hired 120 police officers in my professional life, among the best I've ever seen in interviews. Because of the way the academy works and the training works, we have the opportunity to bring the 3 of them forward to the next police academy, which is in the winter. Date's not yet confirmed. To do that, we may need to go up to 17 sworn officers for a period of time while those vacancies kind of sugar off. So we want to make you aware that we may do that. We can do this all within our FY22 budget, so there is not a financial impact. And I really want to say clearly, while still respecting HR processes, that all 3 of these candidates are people of color and people who would really help us achieve our goal of having our department look more like our community and have the lived experience more of our community. And that this is really a progress that the chief has been making over the last years to work towards this priority and to address the structural racism, systematic oppression that our neighbors of color across the country have experienced. So I've outlined that in my memo. I won't read that to you. And then the chief has given you a lot of details on his staffing plan. So I will let him give you a high-level overview of that. Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Thanks for the time tonight. I'm not going to go through, I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on this.
Rick, you turned your camera off. Did you mean to do that? Rick? You're back. Oh. There you go. You're back.
My iPad has a mind of its own sometimes. I apologize. Can you still see me now?
We can't. It's okay. Now you're back.
Apparently I can't look at my memo and also talk to you at the same time, but that's okay because I pretty much know what I want to say tonight. What I gave you was a memo. We actually have 2 current vacancies, not 1, in the police department right now. And we also have some other moving pieces and parts. And this all started back in 2017 with the loss of Lieutenant Graham and then the retirement of Lieutenant McGivern. We had 3 other officers retire with medical retirements much sooner than expected. So it kind of created this perfect storm of we've been really lucky. We've actually been able to hire 3 full-time certified police officers during this time, but it still leaves us 2 short, and we're facing a retirement sometime in between September of 21 and September of 22, and then another in October of 23. And that's not including any unknowns that we don't know. What we currently do know is that one of our officers is on military leave till at least October 1st of this coming year of 21. And the retirement that I mentioned may or may not happen. He's reaching the retirement age of 55, but he doesn't have his current 20 years of service, so he's not sure he's going to go. What he has verbally committed to me so far is that it would be between September of 21 and September of 22. So when talking about the financial situation of this, best case scenario as far as dollars go in available money, if our officer extends, which is very possible for an additional year, it more than covers anything that we would need for this. If the officer retires and the other officer extends, there's plenty of money to do this. I had Angela crunch all the numbers to include overtime, vacancies. As of right now, the best timeline that I can give you is there's a part-time academy in September, which I'd like to sign all 3 participants up for. That would allow them the months of October. We don't know when the next full-time academy starts. I'm guessing it's going to be December or January, depending on if they push it past the holidays or not. So let's just say it's January. That would give them October, November, December, and part of January to be in uniform, start to do some of their basic certifications. We can make good use of that time for them to get familiar with the community, put some hours in, actually do some patrol, start to learn the job. So it's actually really good time spent for them in the cruisers to be able to actually start doing the job while they're awaiting the full-time academy. If for some reason the officer that's projected to retire doesn't, and the officer who's on military leave comes back, we're still okay. It's just a little bit smaller window of finances that are available. So if that happens, we can always adjust and have all 3 candidates if we had to wait for the full-time academy. So based on just the vacancy savings, the step savings from the people that they're replacing, the 2 positions that we have right now, I believe were slated for step 10 and a step 9. So there's pretty significant savings there just from the 2 people going down to apprentice rates. So I'm pretty confident. I'm very confident, actually. I had Angela, and if you can get something by Angela, you all know that if Angela gives you the thumbs up, you know you're in good shape because she crunches every single say thumbs up. I go up there and I try and twist her arm, and she plays hardball with me every time to make sure that I'm not going to say anything that I can't produce. So very confident after speaking with Angela for an extended amount of time. What we're asking for is for you to make an investment in what we've said to our community that we're trying to do, and that's diversify our police department and better reflect the community that we serve. It just so happens that the 3 people who we have, identified as the top 3 people, if these individuals had put in separate hiring processes, I am confident each and every one would have come out on top and been the number 1 candidate. I like all 3 of them so much that I can't even go number 1, 2, and 3 right now. What I'm going to tell you is we have a 1A, a 1B, and a 1C. And that's a great problem to have. So what we're up against is we have 3 excellent candidates who, by May 15th, when they've completed everything as far as their polygraphs and their background investigations instantly become marketable. Everybody except for our neighbors in Burlington have vacancies that they're filling. So I have no doubt that if we pass on any of these people, that they'll be gone by June 1st. I can say that with 100% certainty. So what I'm asking you for is a little trust and faith that we'll manage the budget, that we may rise to 17 only to fall back to 16 and do it all within the budget that we've been allotted. And that's what I've come to ask you tonight.
Thank you, Chief Hebert. I'm really excited. I've heard a little bit about these candidates. I think your point of how we are trying to meet what we have committed to our community about increasing representation in our PD, I think is really important. I also appreciate the work that's gone into fleshing out the financials here and the feasibility. I will say that I am generally supportive. There's just two things that I will be keeping in mind. And one is that we haven't heard a community value to increase our police force size. So being mindful that it's 17 officers for a period of time, then returning to the 16 that we currently have. And that we may, depending on how things go over the course of the next school year with the school resource officer, we may have another conversation about police staffing in the future. Other counselors want to share questions, comments on the chief's proposal? Bryn.
Yeah, I want to first start by thanking you. It sounds like you've put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into this, and thank you to Angela too for crunching numbers. I certainly, one of my first questions in reading the memo was, what are the numbers? So to the extent that that analysis could be provided in terms of like, what would be estimated if there were a full 17 on board, if the officer on military leave now, and if the officer that opts to delay retirement stays, just so that we, have an idea of what that looks like. It sounds like it's within the allotted budget. I know we're also looking at negotiations for a new contract. So having that in the back of my head as well. And then touching base on what Christine said about the needs and values of the community, and recognizing that there is a great need to support and address the mental health needs, and to what extent how adding additional officers to the force would help meet that need.
Sure, Bryn, thanks for those questions. The first, the answer for your first question, and Angela, feel free to jump in if I misspeak, but from what I understand, there's so many moving pieces and parts. I'll give you best case, worst case financial scenarios. Worst case scenario was that everybody came back on time. We hired everybody in September. There was a $20,000 cushion that was including us, what we've projected for FOP negotiations and also historical use of overtime. So all of those things were included. Worst case scenario, there's still a $20,000 savings. If both of those people, if one retires and the other extends for military leave, there was a $200,000 cushion, up to $200,000. And as far as addressing, I would argue we're not going up to 17. I know on paper we are. Between somebody retiring and if somebody's on military leave, they're not available to us. And although they're still an employee, they're not filling shifts, they're not available to help out. So it's not about us even having 16 right now. We've been running at 14 and sometimes 13, and that's a real problem. One of the other things I didn't mention in this memo that I really worry about is the growth of our existing staff. We have some really talented young officers who came to work at Winooski because they loved our community. They loved what we stood for. They liked how we police. But with that came some promises of some professional growth. And what unfortunately has happened due to, there's two things, right? You put in a good retirement system that encourages people to leave, people leave, that it works, right? But then you have some unexpected things happen, and all of a sudden you're running at minimum staffing, and training gets pushed, developmental training gets pushed to the back burner for a while. And before you know it, 2 to 3 years have gone by and it's become the new normal. And it's not what we promised, and I don't feel good about it. Jessie asked me one time, she'll laugh when I say this, but we were sitting in her office one day and she says, what do you want your legacy to be? And I kind of laughed. I was like, I never really thought that highly of myself, to be honest with you, that I even have a legacy. But I will tell you, I put a lot of thought into it since we had that conversation. And I want to leave the police department better than I found it. That's my legacy. But this is a step in that right direction. It's been a slow, steady progression for us to completely transform how we police, the culture within the police department, embracing de-escalation, embracing diversity, embracing culture. We're not always perfect, and we step on ourselves sometimes, but that's part of professional growth. And I always stand by our mistakes, that our mistakes come from trying too hard sometimes. And I just see this as a once, in my career, what's left in my career opportunity to leave it in a better place.
Thanks for that, Chief. Are there other questions from council? Is there any opposition or strong reservations about what's being proposed? Chief, is there any other, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
I was just going to fill silence, I guess. I do acknowledge that this is a unique timing and that the timing has not been in your favor in past situations. And I think that this is one where I see the risk. I think the risks are small and the benefits potentially large for acting on something that we said we wanted to do. So it would feel very hollow to not support you in this step if this is what you think it takes to get to that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I was just going to ask Chief if there's anything else that would be helpful for feedback from us. Beyond that, we support where you're going with this.
No, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for your continued support. Everything I bring in front of you, you ask great questions, and I think there's some trust there that you see the work that we do and what we're trying to accomplish. And I appreciate that, when I bring things to you, that you're, generally supportive and ask good questions. And I just hope that you could see the logic in this, and that it's going to put us in a place that I don't think I know we won't reach in the remainder of my career if we don't act now.
Well, you have been transforming our department for the good and continuing on that trajectory. We appreciate that and hear appreciation in the community for it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, seeing residents engage with police officers on the road when I'm out and driving by, and this is just to make it even more engaging. And I think you're keeping our city safer and a better place. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
This is on for approval, right? Is that what I'm seeing on this agenda?
Oh, yeah, it is. If you would like to make a motion, you are more than welcome. You do not, there's nothing technical to vote on here other than general support of the staffing plan.
It's on for approval. Someone move.
So I moved it.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Hal. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Approved. Thank you. We will move on to item G, which is the Unified Land Use and Development Regulation Amendments with Eric. This is the same ones we saw last time, right?
That is correct. Yes. Thank you very much, Mayor Lott. This is a continuation of your discussions from the April 19th council meeting, where we provided a high-level overview of some specific amendments that have been working their way through the Planning Commission and are now before you for your consideration to have any detailed discussion tonight, and the consideration of potentially setting a public hearing on these amendments or taking additional time to discuss the amendments. One thing I wanted to point out, the documents that you received last time were missing one small item, and I thought I had corrected it with this round of documents, but I realized I didn't as well. So in Article 2, There, in section 2.3, there should be an item E that we added in with the interim zoning for the downtown core district. That basically the language that was added speaks to any inconsistencies with the green space boundary and how that gets interpreted. That language is being proposed to be deleted anyway because the language that's being added in Article 3 that addresses the downtown core specifically addresses that boundary discussion. So the item that is not included in this document was being deleted anyway, and because it was only being brought in from the interim zoning. So I apologize for not giving that piece to you, but the rest of it should still be as you saw at the last meeting. So for tonight's meeting, I'm here to answer any questions or to address any specific concerns that you all may have about the amendments and talk about next steps. Also, just for reference, our Planning Commission Chair, Mike O'Brien, is on the call if you have any questions for him.
Thank you, Eric. I think I said this last meeting, but I will say again, these changes were passed along to us from Planning Commission. I believe, Eric or Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this set of changes had full approval to come forward to council.
That's correct. Both of these amendments, all the amendments that are proposed through these two memos were all reviewed by the Planning Commission. They went through public hearings at the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission voted, voted to forward them on to council for consideration.
Does council have questions on the amendments?
I don't have questions on the amendments. It sounds like as the next process step that this will go to a public hearing. Is that?
If we wish to move it forward, public hearing would be the next stage. Yes.
Okay.
Jim?
So in Article 3 on section 3.4, I believe it is, it talks about the delineation of the green space. And what's in the agenda still has the original language that in 3.4b section 1 and 2, that the boundary can be updated through an amendment to the regulations to recognize future delineations to the wetland boundary. And then the following one also makes reference to being able to update the green space boundary to follow future wetland delineations. This is something I still have some concern about being in there, because I think it seems to signal the intent of the green space boundary to follow the wetland boundary, which can shift in and out. The effect being that we could allow a change in the green space boundary to make some land developable that ends up being back inside a wetland at a future delineation. I realize that's not the intent, I don't believe, of the green space boundary, but there are already procedures in our Unified Land Use and Development Regulations that allow for amendment to the bylaws. It seems that we could just remove these references to updating in the future to match future wetland delineations and just leave it as the green space boundary is the 2019 delineation and can be amended through the regular process used to amend zoning. My biggest concern, as I said, is that you could, if the green space boundary is continually updated to different wetland delineations, we could end up developing our green space. And I don't think that's the intent of this regulation.
Yeah, so Councillor Duncan, if I'm understanding you correctly, referring to section 3.4, which is on page 8 of 16 of the one memo that has Article 3 included in it, under item number 1, you would recommend basically striking the last part of that sentence so that it ended with this 50-foot buffer shall be measured from the 2019 wetland delineation as approved by the state of Vermont, and full stop.
Yep.
And then under item 2, the text that's being proposed to be added in red would be eliminated.
That's correct.
Okay.
Much clearer. Thank you, Eric.
Other folks support that change?
Yeah, I certainly support the intent.
Okay, seeing no concerns about that. Are there other changes in here that anyone wants to address? I will say the Planning Commission spent a good deal of time on this, so I have some confidence in that work. Does our chair want to add anything? Mike O.
Thank you. No, I don't think so, and I don't think that the edit that Councilor Duncan suggested is significant. I was trying to think about our discussion that we had relative to that, and just that you're right that wetland area could change over time. And I think that was the only thing that we were talking about is allowing it to follow the wetland delineation. But I mean, if we do it from today's, then we know what's there, right? As opposed to what could be there.
Mm-hmm.
So deleting that language would not preclude someone from coming in and requesting that the boundary be amended. I believe it's more of a redundancy in this case, that it's just calling out the fact that that boundary can move, but in the same situation, any zoning boundary can move through a request to the Planning Commission, then via council. So it's basically just eliminating a redundancy in this case.
All right. Not hearing much concern with these changes. It sounds like we might want to set a public hearing.
Yeah, the first date that would, I think, work for a public hearing, given all the notification requirements, would be your June 7th meeting, which is outlined in the cover memo.
Would anyone like to move to set a public hearing for June 7th?
Hey, Christine,
Jesse?
I'm sorry, before you do that, Eric, do you think they need to vote on the Duncan amendment to the language to get a final copy of that before a public hearing?
I guess it wouldn't hurt. I think, whatever gets put, it would probably be appropriate so that there's an agreement from council on what is being sent forward for that to be notified for that public hearing. But that would be included in the notification and be the published language. But yeah, that might be appropriate for council to take action on that.
So can I have a motion to move forward the Unified Land Use? Shoot, I don't have it open. The ULUDR with the Jim's proposed modification to section 3.4 to a public hearing on June 7th.
So moved.
Motion by Jim, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Eric.
Great. Thank you all very much.
So moving on to item 8.
Hey, Christine.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul cut me off, so I had to raise my hand.
Oh, I missed it.
No, I just wanted to say thank you very much to the council for considering this and sending it to a public hearing. Thanks so much.
Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right. So item H, Winooski School District contract to support summer and after school rec programming. Ray, welcome back.
Thank you. And Nicole is here as well. Thank you for hanging with us.
Welcome, Nicole.
Yeah. So very, very excited to be bringing this proposal forward. You saw the beginnings of this conversation at your last council meeting. And since that time, Nicole and Angela and I have spent a lot of quality time on Zoom together and have come up with the attached contract and proposed slate, initial proposed slate of programming. Programs would be slated to start May 13th, thereabouts, and run through the end of fiscal year 22, so through June 30 of 22, for a contract value of up to $300,000. One of the things that we spent quite a bit of time working on was developing sort of a consistent means by which we would build a school for enrollees or participants in programs. And so you see that attached as Appendix B to the contract. And in doing the analysis since the last meeting with Angela, feel really confident that based on projected enrollments and the current scope of the program, we would be both to the good and the bad within the range of funding that we would need to cover costs and also to maximize this contract. So happy to answer any specific questions that folks have, but and Nicole, hopefully I didn't miss anything. Okay.
Thanks, Ray. This looks pretty aligned to what was previewed to us at our last meeting. So any questions from council? All right, let's move forward with activating these funds. Would someone like to move to approve the Winooski School District contract to support summer and after school rec programming?
I'll move.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Hal. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Ray and Nicole.
Thank you.
Item I, the After School Summer Matters Grant.
Yes. So in addition to the funds that we've been working on with the school, there is a funding opportunity that was just announced April 20th through Vermont After School for programming running between June and August of this summer. So we are proposing to go forward with an application for that funding to support our summer teen employment program. I do want to acknowledge that the document that you saw for the ESSER funds does include the teen employment program. So should this funding pool not come forward, we'll still be able to run the summer teen employment program, but wanted to make sure that was captured in both places as we brought that previous contract forward as well. So, and this is a program we ran. It's been, I think, 4 years since we took off from that, but we had run it through a Department of Labor grant in years past, and it was a great success. And actually, 2 of our current Thrive employees are alums of the teen employment program, which is pretty awesome.
It's great. Excited to see more possible funds on the table to do this work. Questions from council? Would someone like to make a motion to approve the Vermont After School Summer Matters for All grant application?
So moved.
Motion by Mike, second by Hal. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. And so next are the Community Services Department position descriptions to support the expanded programming.
Yeah, we're going to need 1 or 2 more people to get this done. So before you is a slate of proposed position amendments and additions. Just to call out a few notables, the current Children and Family Programs Manager position would be proposed to go from 32 to 40 hours per week, which it had been actually in years past. The Youth Interventionist position would go from currently 10 to 12 hours to a stable 25 hours per week. And then we would be looking to add the slate of positions listed here, an admin/outreach assistant for the department to help get folks signed up and enrolled, a pool operations supervisor to help lighten the load on the rec director so that she can really focus on the development of a lot of these programs that are coming at us, and then various support staff kind of down the line to help deliver. So we also, I should note to mention here, we are anticipating for the next meeting coming back with some updates to the AmeriCorps program as well, but Phoebe and I need to do a little legwork on how exactly to propose that, because those are not technically city employees. They are serving here through AmeriCorps, but in some cases get paid through our payroll. So we need to just kind of work out the logistics of how we bring that forward to council.
And
That's right.
so just to, I think you all know this, but the council under the charter holds the authority to approve position purposes and funding sources. So that's for all of these positions. That is what you are being asked to approve tonight.
Thank you, Jesse.
And just to make the statement publicly, the new positions will be funded through the grants.
Correct.
As well as the hours expansion on the existing positions. But the existing positions, you know, the 32 hours and the 12, that continues to be funded through the general fund as it has been in the approved budget.
Correct.
Any questions from council on these position descriptions? Bryn?
I was just curious, with all these new positions, who will supervise them?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a mix. Jenny is going to be taking on a lot more supervision responsibility with the addition of a lot of these staff. The teen employment folks are going to be a combination of kind of myself and Jenny overseeing that program, and then one of our AmeriCorps positions helping to support the kind of logistical pieces. And then each of those crews has essentially like a site supervisor that'll be managing them. So like trail crew, for instance, would be Gwynnie's to manage. The pool operations manager would fall under Jenny's purview, but be sort of the main point person up at the pool during the summer. And then the admin and outreach assistant would be kind of under my general supervision, but working across the department.
Any other questions? Would someone like to make a motion to approve the Community Services Department prescription position descriptions?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Bryn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you so much. And if anyone's looking for a job, let me know.
Thanks, Ray.
So we will move on now to item K. This is on for discussion approval of the assessing and reappraisal contracts.
Thank you. So before you, there's two different contracts, one for ongoing assessing coverage and one for the reappraisal. I'm going to talk about them separately for just a minute. We are recommending the award of both contracts to Vermont Appraisal Company, which is our current municipal assessor. The assessing contract was up for rebid anyway, and we, as you know, are have been under a reappraisal order from the state since last summer. So the assessing contract as presented would run from July 1st of this year through one complete year post the reappraisal. So likely a 4-year contract, which is outside of our procurement process. So I want to specifically call that out if you choose to approve that contract tonight. The finances for that contract stay the exact same this year as they have been in past years, and then actually reduce during the years of the reappraisal because the cost for that increases. And then in the 4th year goes up basically by CPI in the 4th year. The reappraisal contract would start on July 1st, 2022 and run for 2 years. It is anticipated that the complete reappraisal process will take 2 years for the city. So the grand list, the reappraised grand list would be lodged in the 2024 timeline process. The contract, the Vermont Appraisal Company is the company that actually did our last reappraisal. So they have a lot of familiarity. And one of their current leads is actually a person who used to be on our staff as a fire marshal and then returned and then left to go to this company. So it has a lot of knowledge about our community and our properties. What else do I want to mention? I do want to say huge thanks to Angela and Eric and Heather and Janet, who really supported the bidding out of this work and the reviewing of the contracts and are poised to move forward. One last thing, in the assessing contract, one of the big differences in this contract from prior agreements is in this calendar year, before we get to the reappraisal, there will be technical assistance offered through the assessor to look at new technology that will allow us to modernize, to bring online our property records and get that technology in place before the reappraisal starts. So then the reappraisal can be uploaded into that system. All of this can be done within our FY22 budget and the reserves Angela has been setting aside for reappraisal. Excuse me, so no additional funds are needed at this point. I will stop talking now and let you ask questions.
Thanks, Jesse. And for council's knowledge, I attended one of the meetings with staff discussing the reappraisal with the recommended vendor here, and there was good discussion about the expectations that we are setting for them on communicating with our residents and being proactive about communications, being responsive. It can be like a concerning process for people. And then also being prepared to engage translation and interpretation when needed. So questions? Bryn.
So Jesse, with the timeline again, it sounds like the contract for the reappraisal will finish July 1, 2024. Is that, would that new data be incorporated in the FY25 budget then?
Yes.
It would be ready for the FY25 budget?
So the FY25 tax rate would be set using the reappraised values. I don't think this is what you're asking, but just for anyone watching this later on, the reappraisal doesn't change how much we raise from property taxes. Our budget, the amount we spend on services, stays the same. How we divide up how people are paying for that budget may change with the reappraisal. But the actual budget, the biggest impact of the grand list being launched in 2024 is how the FY25 tax rate is set. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions? All right, hearing no concerns, do I hear a motion to approve the assessing and reappraisal contracts as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hal, second by Jim. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is the City School Memorandum of Understanding.
Thank you. So as you, I think all know, we annually have a memorandum of understanding with the school district about kind of our shared commitments to one another, or work we partner on, et cetera. This year's MOU has been extended a few times during the school trustees discussion of the school resource officer position. Now that that is set for FY22, I wanted to bring you this updated memorandum of understanding. I do want to disclose this has not yet been discussed at a school trustees meeting, so it is pending their approval. The biggest differences in this document from the document you've seen in the past is that we tried to clean up some of the language to really refer to our shared community goals and visions with the district's end policy and the city's strategic vision. We then changed the terms a little bit. Historically, this has been a September to September agreement, which was a little awkward with our budgeting conversations and our fiscal years. So in conversations with the superintendent, we are recommending that it basically becomes a February to February agreement with mutual commitments that will notify each other by November 1st if we intend to change any of the terms, so we can integrate that into our two different budget processes. And then other than that, the only other change is the commitment to the city now paying 50% of the school newsletter cost. I do want to acknowledge that what is not in here is our future work together around our equity inclusion work and the plan for expanding the community liaison role. With the equity director coming on board, we really wanted to give time and space for those conversations, engaging with the community liaisons. So that's not in here, but will be potentially a factor in a future MOU or a side agreement just for those positions.
Thanks, Jesse, for outlining the changes. And I think to add some context, we've had a pretty standard agreement with the school for a number of years. And, you know, as Jesse mentioned, the delay around the SRO discussions, I think the goal is there's been so much focus on that. I think for both of our organizations, this keeps us moving forward. So when we have space to add in those other pieces of work, we can have a deeper conversation at that time for the next round of the agreement. Are there questions from council? Jim.
So the first one is on that question of timing and the homeschool liaisons and the kind of equity work partnering with the school. So do you envision needing to do a parallel agreement or I'm sorry, a separate agreement? Or I would just say the timing seems like it might be a bit long to wait until February to begin, or I guess till December, January to begin rethinking what additional agreements we need between the school district and the city in order to make that partnership work. I'm just curious if you can say anything more on the timeline you might anticipate with that equity work and the work with the homeschool liaisons.
Well, certainly my intention would not be to delay that conversation until the February date. With Yasmin starting on Monday, I think that, working with the community liaisons, understanding their roles, understanding how those roles could be expanded and what that employment structure may look like is going to be an initial priority for her with setting up the equity committee. So I think that it's very possible that we have a side agreement with the school on that shared plan over time. For example, and we don't necessarily need that reflected in the MOU. So how we have partnered in the past with the community liaisons on the Working Communities Challenge grant work is to enter into stipend agreements with the community liaisons to support that work. We intend to do that again this summer and fall as Yasmin and the community liaisons work to build that structure jointly. So that can be outside of the universe of the MOU. And then once there is a plan in place, we could either have a side agreement to the MOU or, a letter of intent for a future MOU or something like that. It is, to me, I don't see this MOU process holding back that process at all.
Great, thank you. I do think it would be a good signal to see that in this next MOU. So I like the idea of a letter of intent for the MOU so that we can outline that commitment as soon as possible. Thanks, Jesse. And can I ask another question since my mic is on? Thanks.
By all means.
So I noticed, I tried to go back and I don't know if I found the most recent MOU, but previously we did have a commitment from the school to participate in the Housing Commission. And I noticed that's not in here. And I don't believe that any of our other commissions had an explicit commitment detailed like that. Is there a reason that that was removed in this MOU?
No, it was, yes, there was a reason it was removed, but not intentionally for lack of interest in serving on the Housing Commission. I think the thought more was to clean up the language. So the things that are financial exchanges is what is codified here. And then the things that are partnerships that we do together because we are implementing the policy of the community is partnerships that we do anyway. So this is really meant to capture those financial transactions and not necessarily, that, for example, John Rauscher sits on the executive team of the capital project. We're always going to do that because we want to work in partnership with them on municipal infrastructure, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in this MOU. This is really just codifying the financial exchanges.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the city school MOU for 21-22?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Hal. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is item M. This is a discussion of our 2021-22 policy priorities and strategy retreat scheduling. Welcome back, Ray.
Thank you. And by all means, Christine and Eric and Phoebe, who are all part of this planning process, please chime in if there are things that were missed here. But tried to lay out here just an overview of the steps that we discussed as a group on April 22nd, leading up to what will hopefully be a renormalization of our policy and strategy session or priority and strategy session for the next fiscal year. So hoping that we can agree to a date at tonight's meeting. Ideally, June 26th was what we had discussed as a group of 4 or 5. And looking to get back to that half-day retreat format. The agenda is included here, or proposed agenda. Certainly that's, I think, a proposal that's up for recommendations or suggestions to be adjusted, but that was, I think, a summary of what we discussed as a group on the 22nd. And idea being that we would then, as a staff, convene the leadership team on June 2nd after having the month of May to go over recommendations through the commissions, and then bring forward to council on June 18th, initial draft of the priorities and strategies for discussion on June 26th, and then bring that back after the day of discussion and workshopping for an approval on July 19th. It's all captured in the memo, but I'm going to answer questions or suggestions.
I think you did do a good job here of capturing what we discussed and sort of outlining what the steps look like. So Jim and Mike, you might remember this from 2 years ago. Hal, you've been to 2 of these. Still, it's been a minute. But Bryn, this is your first time seeing sort of what the structure looks like. So
I've read the public documents previously, but it'll be my first time participating.
Excellent. So I guess first order of business, does Saturday, June 26th work for council?
Works for me.
I'll be out of town, but don't change your plans because of me. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm booked.
How it could be virtual at that time.
Yeah.
I'd have to make sure my Little League team that I coach has coverage on that day. So I think it goes until then. I could be wrong though. The schedule hasn't come out yet, but I just need to get coverage, that's all.
Okay. Jim?
I am free.
I don't like the idea of Hal having to participate virtually if the rest of us are able to in person. But I think based on the outline here, it doesn't, Ray or staff, it doesn't seem like we would be able to push to move this up. If the 26th didn't work, we would have to move into July, I think.
Sorry, I'm pulling up my calendar here to see, because the council meeting before the 26th. So the June 19th, but that's Juneteenth, which we discussed not wanting to have a conflicting event that day. If we were committed to a weekend. I mean, I think the other option would be to do a longer afternoon session, if that works. But I didn't sense, Christine, that was something you were super enamored with as a concept.
Well, I mean, we could do daytime, but we all have jobs. I don't know how flexible folks are with that.
So if the Juneteenth event is scheduled from 5 to 8:30 p.m., so we could potentially meet earlier in that day. But I also recognize there are other events happening that day as well in the area. And
so there's not an actual event conflict with our scheduling. It's more a question of, is it a bad choice to put an open to the public event on a holiday?
I'd say probably yes.
I would support meeting on a Friday. I'd also support trying to find a time that Hal can be in person. I'm happy to do Friday, a Saturday, or Sunday afternoon, whatever is amenable for others. My schedule's fairly open.
How about the 18th of June?
I could do an afternoon on Friday.
That is also doable for me. What does this look like on staff side? And Mike, I don't know how flexible your weekday schedule is.
That's hard because this is my busy time of year for my contracting business. So it have to play it by ear. Depends on what deadlines I have then.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a few staff calendars which seem to be open, so I'd have to do a little more digging to see what general availability looks like. But I think initially on the staff side, that could probably work.
So Angela will not be there on the 18th.
Thank you.
Which, I getting 15 people all coordinated. You're likely not to have one or two, but just to call that out.
we've also received feedback in the past that public meetings on Sunday mornings aren't super appreciated, but what about doing like Sunday the 20th or the 27th?
I'm fine with those dates.
The 20th works.
I'm not available any Sunday.
Okay.
That's the actual one day I don't work at all. So I'm sorry. It's not going to happen on a Sunday for me.
So shall we stick with the 26th and how we'll bring like a widescreen laptop to put you on maybe?
So the 18th was proposed with we still have the same issue. I'm kind of thinking out loud about the 25th and Mike's schedule just, of course, still being a factor there. So,
well, I want to shoot out that the 20th is Father's Day as well, too. I mean,
oh,
your kids remember that, Mike? I'm open.
but like Hal said before, don't base it around my schedule either. I mean,
well,
we can catch up.
It is. I would not like to move this forward without the full council present. Like the risk of Hal having to attend virtually is better than the risk of having a member not present at all, I think.
And then I would suggest to get earlier in the summer than later because that's when people's vacations start taking place.
I think with Little League, we only have a couple weeks that are going to satisfy that. So I think that would make the 26th the only day that works for the most people.
Well, June 12th. I mean, that's quite early. That's a pretty quick turnaround for staff to get materials back and around, but would that day be an option?
Works for me.
Works for me.
Again, it would be giving coverage for Little League.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
I can do this.
enough notice?
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Bryn.
I was just wondering what would be sufficient notice, I guess.
Who are you asking that question to?
Mike, I was wondering
I'd have to find out if I can get coaching coverage for the 12th if the season is that long. I haven't received my game schedule yet, which
gotcha.
It just started. Practicing or starting this week, so
I see. Okay.
Christine, does the 12th work for you as a possibility?
It is certainly not ideal, but I can make it work.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you had said that those earlier days were not great.
I am not supposed to be in Winooski on the 12th, but I can be here.
I apologize. You told me that and I totally forgot.
Yeah, because if the 26th doesn't work, the next weekend would be the 4th of July weekend would be great. We would be looking at pushing it out till probably July 10th.
Right.
If we can't make a June date work.
And July 10th and 17th, I'm out of town and without internet. So I apologize.
Sounds like the 26th is the best date for the majority of the people.
I think we could all be present on the 12th, but the turnaround time for staff is some concern with the content.
I mean, we can get it done, but that would be a quick turnaround.
Someone want to make a motion for a date?
We need to do a slate of dates.
I would prefer the 26th personally, but I can make the 12th work if you.
As much as I hate to not have you there, Hal, I feel like having time for the staff to put in the time to prep, and it seems like a month seems really tight to me to turn that around, especially with everything else that's going on. So my inclination is to push out. I should say I can make the 10th in the morning work. I do have to leave hard stop at 12, so that would be, if we wanted to do July 10th, I could go out to that, but otherwise I would say we should do the 26th.
We also have talked about wanting to add like a hybrid access component anyhow for public attendance. So I think we can be more thoughtful about that than we have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I'll move that we hold our retreat on June 26th.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you all. Hold that time on your calendar. I'll send an invite out like in 5 minutes. Were there any questions about the content or the proposed agenda or anything that folks wanted to ask about tonight?
I want to mention that for consideration for priorities, we'll be putting together a memo for an energy component to the municipal infrastructure. And we'll do my best to outline that and have that reviewed by the mayor prior to that being shared.
Thanks, Bryn. All right. So moving on to item N, City Management Transition Plan.
So Phoebe and John and I put together a quick memo for you all on what we have been doing over the last month, 6 weeks-ish, and then who the point people are for each functional area, each staff person, and each kind of organizational partner. So I can talk through this quickly, or I can just answer questions if you would like.
Questions? I mean, hopefully we all looked at it ahead of time.
How is this being communicated to the public, I guess?
That's a great question. We have not talked about that. Phoebe and John will put together a plan to communicate it to the public. No? Not
Did I see this?
I mean, I think it's a good question. I think most folks either come through the clerk's office, so the clerk will direct people to where they need to go, or we could put a summary of this on the city manager's webpage, which is sometimes how folks get to me. So that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that, but we will do that.
Yeah, and if you post the contacts and the departments that are reporting to John and Phoebe, maybe also just including relevant email addresses for everybody, just so it's all right in one space.
Yep, that's how it is organized on the website now.
Okay.
Also, it will be in my out of office message. So
okay, perfect.
If people, email for something, they'll get redirected.
Okay. And I would say a front porch forum post if that wasn't already part of the communication plan.
You could pretty much always consider a front porch forum.
I figured, Paul. I figured.
The whole thing. You got it.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from council on this? So I think that transitions us nicely into item O, which is up for approval. These are the co-interim city manager contracts for John and Phoebe to step into their roles as Jesse steps out. We started with an existing city manager contract had it reviewed by Bob DePalma, made some tweaks. We actually had Jesse and Angela help with some of the financials in here. John and Phoebe have seen these, so they're structured to two things I wanted to call out. During the time where they are serving as interim co-managers, they will be receiving a pay bump. So they have two different salaries right now, which is why you see two different percentage increases in there to kind of get them the same amount of pay for the time they're doing that role. With a bonus paid at the end, you know, if they stick it out until we actually hire that new person. There's a flat fee at the end. And then they can and will, well, I shouldn't say will, but they, at the end of being interim, or frankly, even if they chose to resign from doing that piece, like they retain their existing jobs as HR manager and public works director. So these have been vetted and are here for your approval. If you have questions, I think Phoebe, myself, Jesse could all speak to those. All right, not hearing any questions or concerns. Would someone like to move to approve the co-interim city manager contracts?
Moved.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Hal. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, John and Phoebe, for your future work in these roles. And the work you're already doing with transition plan. So that's the end of our regular agenda. We do have an executive session on tonight, a sort of exit interview with Jessie, as this is our last meeting with her. Because it's sort of a personnel issue, VSA state statute 313A3 find that this should be done in executive session, not open meeting. So would someone like to move to find that?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bryn, second by Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. So can I have a motion to enter into executive session with Jesse Baker?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. So we're going to hop to another Zoom line. We'll try to come back to this one to adjourn. All right, thank you.